What is your most NSFW story about walking in on someone doing the dirty or being walked in on? I was about 18 or so and I was hooking up with my stepsister's friend when my dad knocks on my door. Me and the friend stop and my dad pops his head in and asks if I'm going anywhere tomorrow. I reply no and then he leaves. The next day I asked him what that was all about and he replies, "Well, I heard what was going on and I just wanted to make sure it wasn't your stepsister." I was a housekeeper in a hotel. Walked in on a few people. I always knocked and called out first, but I think some people just like getting caught. HS girlfriend giving me head in my truck. In her parents' driveway. She didn't like me finishing in her mouth, so I desperately look around and open the door and finish in the driveway. The house across the street was having their roof replaced. Whole crew of roofers just saw me nut in the driveway. In my teens. Grandparents had a hot tub that was inside an enclosed sunroom. The door from their bedroom opened right next to where it was situated. I'm balls deep in the GF and working on her right boob. The door, about 2 feet away, opens and I make eye contact with Grandpa just as I'm licking my GF's nipple. He coughs and says, "Oh. Excuse me," and closes the door. Grandpa was chill AF. I was dating a woman with a young daughter. Early one morning. We'd been woken at dawn by the sun. And were going at it safe in the knowledge that the little mite was asleep. But no. Without warning she ran into the room. At the time I was on top. Luckily with a sheet over us. So the little girl ran over. Jumped on my back and shouted, "Let's play horsey." So there I am. Buried up to the maker's plate in her mum. With her on top going giddy up. Full stop. I'm thinking that if I move a muscle I'm probably committing a serious offense. Luckily for all involved. The effect of that thought was immediate. And I shrank away and out. Letting mum scuttle out and find some clothes. A brief game of horsey. And the princess escaped entirely untraumatized. And the princess escaped entirely untraumatized. Until she has a horrible realization later in life. I was on top of my girlfriend at the time. Doing the deed. Her mom props the door open. Not knowing what to do. I just froze. Her mother decided to calmly walk over to me and rest her hand on my bare shoulder. I stayed frozen as if she was a King T-Rex. All she said was, "You better be wearing a condom." Walked out and shut the door. I died that day. My mom walked into my room on the exact moment I was taking the girl's bra off and asked we were hungry. It was hilarious. No. Thanks. I'm about to eat out. Not during the act. But after having sex while still naked. We were in my room with the door shut. She was in the bed and I was on my chair in front of my keyboard and computer. I started playing Build Me Up Buttercup and singing it to her. Well, my roommate heard this. And being that it's the best sing-along song ever. He came up to my door singing and knocked to see if he could come in and sing with me. I said, "Do not come in." But he only heard "come in." So my roommate walked in on me. Naked on my chair playing piano. And my girlfriend. Naked on my bed. The worst part about it was that he didn't recognize the situation and stayed in there for a solid minute confused as to why we told him to come in when we were naked. Wife and I forgot to lock the doors and our, at the time, 4-year-old daughter walked in on us. We hid as quickly as we could and were successful at hiding what was going on. The next morning at breakfast my daughter asks me if we thought she was a ghost and that's why we were hiding under the blankets. Thanks for sharing your funny stories too. They've been hilarious to go through and read. And for those who've asked, yes. I told her we thought she was a ghost and we didn't know it was her until she said "Mommy. Daddy." She laughed at that and thought it was silly we thought she was a ghost because Daddy always says ghosts aren't real. When I was a teen my girlfriend at the time's mum walked in while I was under the covers going down on her. Not knowing what to do or say I just stayed there hiding until she finished her conversation with her daughter hoping I wouldn't be noticed. However, in the panic I failed to realize my feet had been sticking out the end of the bed the whole time. Needless to say, I was mortified and could hardly face my girlfriend's parents afterwards. Although in the end she was pretty alright about it and let me off pretty easy, only making a few jokes before conveniently forgetting what had even happened. I would have had to say oh hey. My high school girlfriend was giving me my first blowjob. We were in my room and she was laying down and wanted me to straddle her face while she did the deed. The door was next to the headboard which I was facing. My mom walks in to see if we want dinner and, well, she saw everything. Dick in mouth. Me on top of this poor girl. She slammed the door and didn't let us back in my room forever. See? If I ever catch one of my kids mid-sex with their significant other, I would just sit both of them down and give them the longest, most boring SOL education lesson ever. So they can be mortified, but educated. The only time I've walked in on anything. But it's a doozy. I went to tell my brother that a classmate of ours had passed away. I knocked on his door and received no answer. Not unusual, since he is a heavy sleeper. But I decided I ought to go ahead and wake him up to tell him. He wasn't sleeping. He was jacking off to hentai with his headphones on. I managed to leave without him noticing, since his back was to me. But I still saw more than I ever needed to. Now I can't remember our dead classmate without thinking about my brother jacking it to hentai. In my uni halls. Walked into a mate's room to see if he was joining us for beers. I opened the door asking the question and look up to find him stark naked. Laptop on legs. Headphones on. Meat in hand. Silence between the two of us. It was like I hit pause for a few seconds. Nodded and left him to it. He came for beers too. He came for beers. I walked in on my older sister and her boyfriend going at it hard when I was 8 or 9. I think. He'd come home early from a family birthday. And she was not happy I came bursting into her room to say hello. Since people keep asking. Yes. People PM me stuff. Yes. I do respond seriously. My sister once walked in on me saying that I had to hang up my washing as it had just been washed. I had just finished and had some ejaculate on my hands which I was in the process of cleaning. I was undercover, so thankfully she didn't see me naked. Upon noticing what was on my hand, she said with a horrified look on her face, "So what's that on your hand?" Apostrophe. The only excuse I could think of was that I'd sneezed and some snot landed on my hand. I was with my high school girlfriend in my room around dinner time. And she had said she wanted to try tying my hands behind my back while she, polished the shoe. I agreed for 2 reasons. 1. If this was an attempt at rendering me defenseless in order to murder me, I was pretty sure I could still take her with my legs. And 2. This was a free pass to have to not do any work. Win-win. That is until she starts going at it and my dad walks in. Presumably to ask us what we wanted for dinner. Takes one look at her. Me. Immediately closes the door. And has not said a word about it since. This happened about 5-6 years ago. Still nothing. He's a fun guy who likes to poke fun. So I'm just waiting for the day he finally gets to make his joke about it. Didn't walk in on him. My roommate just started having sex with a girl while I was in the room. He thought I was sleeping. But still. Been there. Woke up on the floor beside the bed. Half asleep. Hear the girl say oh, but sudden interaction is right there. They looked over and decided I must still be out of it. Heard the grunts begin. And began to fear I'd be there a while. Lasted 20-30 seconds tops. Feigned waking up and left. I was doing the dirty with my HSGF at the time. Her parents were strict, so we took my car behind a golf course near her house. She was facing back. I was facing forward. She stops and was like, "The police are here." I turned around and sure enough a cop's lights were flashing. I hopped into the driver's seat and pulled up my pants while my GF was trying to get her pants on in the back. The cop taps on the window and says, "What are you doing?" My immediate response was, Just having some fun." He took my ID and asked my story to make sure nothing sketchy was going on. Ultimately, he handed back my ID and said, "You guys have to find a better place. It's the middle of the day." And that's how I lost my virginity. Not exactly during sex. I was 16 and my GF was 15. OMW to her house to lose my virginity while her parents were gone. She sneaks me in the garage and tells me to wait a minute, then sneak into her room. So I count to 60, step into her house and run directly into her 13-year-old snitch of a brother. She plays it off as I came to borrow something. Shoves a CD in my hand and I leave. 5 minutes later she brings me from the garage to the bedroom. I get her shirt and bra off for the first time and her mom calls and says she'll be home early in 5 minutes. I have never booked it so fast or been blue-balled so bad. The bro is definitely a massive dickhead. Back in freshman year at college, my roommate and I arranged for me to sleep in another room while his girlfriend visited one weekend. Her first night there. We all go to a party and get demonstrably drunk. In my inebriated state, I forgot my promise and went to sleep in my bed. I woke up to our bunk bed shaking. After the shaking stopped, I waited 10 minutes and tried to leave the room as quietly as possible. My roommate and I never spoke of it, but we both knew what had transpired. Went to my bedroom to grab something in the middle of the night. My sister and her boyfriend were visiting for the holidays and I saw them pass out. Mid-sex. Both naked on my bed. The next morning, he puked in my garbage can. But at least he washed it out. Back in college when I was visiting my then boyfriend, now husband, at his fraternity house, we were getting down with the get down when we were suddenly showered with drywall insulation and greeted by two chubby legs protruding from the ceiling. Turns out some of the brothers got drunk and thought it would be a good idea to explore the attic. The rest of the brothers stormed into the room to see if their fallen comrade was okay. Semicolon. So there I was. Naked. Covered in fiberglass insulation. Putting on an unintended show for some of the guys who would later be in my wedding party. Girlfriend and I were having sex on her mom and stepdad's bed. I hear him open the front door and there's not much I can do at this point. So I get off the bed and squat down and start petting his dog that was watching us like a creep. He walks in the room and sees me petting his dog in my underwear while my naked girlfriend is still on the bed. Actually thought at the time that I was being inconspicuous. I wasn't. I bet he was confused as FCK. Like, you guys are F-kin. What did you do to the dog? XGF when I was young had a clever little trick for stealth nookie. She had a pair of tights with the crotch ripped out. She wore them under a skirt when I came for visit. She brought a blanket down to the basement den, put a movie on, and covered us up. Then she reached back, fished my erection out of my pants and guided it home while we were supposedly innocently snuggling on the couch and watching Willow. She even pre-stashed a clean-up towel under the couch cushions before I arrived. Her mom came down the stairs many times to check on us. "You kids okay? Need anything?" And there I was. Balls deep in sweet slippery tingling ecstasy. My heart pounding as I tried to look calm and cool. GF, who'd been softly moaning and grinding herself on me a few moments before, was cool as a cucumber. "No thanks, Mom. We're good." And she actually squeezed on me a few times while talking to her. Pretty sure she got off on the danger somehow. If her mom ever told us to get up right now and come with her, we'd be so busted. But it never happened. We were getting our walls painted back when I was around 14 years old. 2 rooms closed out. There were 3 painters. 2 men and a woman. Mom asked me to give the painters some coffee and snacks. I entered the room to see one of the guys going hard on the lady. Like Chewbacca style. The other guy was painting like his life depended on it. I was never the same since. The youngster in me obviously knew what was going on, but was too embarrassed to tell Mom. Just went to my room and fapped my brains out. Edit. Virgin gold. Thanks for throwing the gold, stranger. I dedicate this star to the bobbing butt of the brown hairy painter and the unusually growly paintress. Your unholy act made me lose my virginity today. I was staying at my girlfriend's parents' house, who were out of town. We get blasted at the bar, catch a ride home, and go to her parents' room to sleep. Obviously sleep turned into SI time. Being drunk, we did not clean our mess up. We just passed out. The next morning, her mom comes home early and walks into the room. She walked into both of us naked on her bed with several used condoms on the floor. I just stared at her like there's literally nothing I can say that would be okay, and she just goes, "Oh, don't worry, sweetie. I told her you all could use our bed." She walks in the bathroom, grabs something, leaves and says, "Have fun." I had never been more confused in my life. When I was in the army living in the barracks, I walked in on my roommate being ridden by one of the barracks, shall I say, frequent visitors. I said, "Oh, sorry. I'll come back later," and he said, "Come on in." She doesn't mind. She can do both of us, and she said, "Yeah, I can do both of you." I don't mind. Not really my scene. So I left. And he ended up in the middle of a localized epidemic of pubic lice. This is one of those RPG decisions matter moments. Was seeing a woman a couple of years ago who was recently divorced with teenage kids. Went to her house one evening after her daughter left for some sort of practice. Started getting frisky on the couch, and we were going full throttle when her 17-year-old daughter walked through the front door announcing practice was cancelled. She wouldn't look me in the eye for quite some time. I was young and stoned with my then girlfriend. My mum walks into the room whilst I'm riding my girlfriend like a Scottish jockey. I was super embarrassed, and she said, "Don't worry. It's natural. Where do you think you came from?" Then proceeded to try and hug me. 1/10 would not recommend. Mom. Mom. No. Get out. Mom. No. Why? Yes. I love you. 2. Now please go. Ex-Finesse and I on her bed midday. She is wearing this skimpy outfit that leaves nothing to the imagination. I am fully clothed going down on her when her sister walks and goes, "Jesus. OMG. Shti, I'm sorry," while frantically closing the door. We laughed. Well, I did. Girlfriend and I went parking next to a lake in the middle of nowhere in the family car. We had been there a lot and there was seldom ever anyone around. Anyway, in the back seat, doing what teenagers on a Saturday afternoon do. When there is a knock on the window, there are 2 police officers standing right outside the window. GF starts bawling and we scramble to get our clothes back on. Thankfully the police waited patiently. They asked for ID and where we lived. Apparently they were looking for a runaway, which is what brought them out there. Cop see my ID and says, "Are you MR? Weak sources son by any chance?" Oh god. My dad was an EMT and firefighter, so he knew a lot of the area police officers. My dad never brought it up though. Found out later that he knew about it but just thought it was funny. Wasn't our first or last time we got caught, but it certainly was the scariest. I was having sex with my housemate's older sister. She was on top right when one of the guys who was over to refinish the bathroom opened the door to ask where the water meter was. I installed a lock after that. When I lost my virginity to my HS sweetheart, I could hear my parents laughing in the room next door to whatever TV show they were watching. It was so ironic, we both started cracking up laughing during mid-sex and heard my parents yell, "Are you laughing at us?" I wanted to ask the same thing. Had sex with my GF at the time after a night of heavy drinking. We both fell asleep naked on top of her bed. Woke up to her mom putting my boxes on me and saying, "Quiet. He's gonna get up in about 5 minutes. Go to the couch before he sees you." He literally came out as I closed my eyes on the couch. When we were all around 14-15 years old, I walked in the hay barn and caught my younger sister giving my friend a blowjob. I was f***ing this chick in her apartment when the landlord opened her apartment door without knocking first. and as soon as he opened the door slightly, she screamed, "I'm busy," while riding on top. I never once stopped doing my thing at all. S.N. The landlord never saw me or, since the kitchen counter would have obstructed his view of me whilst we were F-king on the living room floor. All he could have seen was her ass bouncing on my dick and my feet at the most. When the landlord opened her apartment door. That's illegal as FCK.